Hello and welcome once again to Prep to Thrive. My name is Ben, I'm the little brother, and this is my big sister Molly. And today, we're going to be talking about fats.
We're discussing fats so that you won't be tricked into buying stuff that makes you die faster.
That's preferable.
Although we do need to give a disclaimer, as everybody does on the internet. Don't use our advice to do something ridiculous and stupid and then blame it on us. Disclaimer over.
Yeah. So they used to tell us that there was only like one kind of fat. There's just fat, and fat is not good for you, right?
They used to say fat was bad. All fat was bad. And this led to a proliferation of low fat but high sugar junk. Also, saturated fat was like extra demonized. It was artery clogging Satan. So the industries replaced them with things that turned out to be worse, trans fats and hydrogenated oils. So we had an explosion of heart disease cases over the last few decades. So I think it's safe to say we don't want to make that same mistake again and just blindly trust the media and people trying to sell us stuff. So I'm going to try to just briefly explain how fat molecules can be different and what that logically might mean. And at the end, try to give some practical advice that you can just use to feel better about your food choices, more informed.
Okay, so we know that fat is like a dense source of calories in our food. It can also make us fat if we eat a lot of it, right? But extra calories from any source of food can become fat in our bodies. Is this right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But fat also has crucial roles in the structure of every single cell in our bodies, not just the ones that are actually storing fat that we think of as fat cells. Fat has critical roles in brain development, in your hormones, in reproduction. When we digest it, it helps us absorb those fat-soluble vitamins A and E, those sorts of things, so we need it. So what is fat? Well, it doesn't matter where the fat comes from, a cow, a coconut, or canola. They all have molecules that are pretty similar. They all have a chain of carbon atoms, which make up the bulk of it. These chains can be longer or shorter, or maybe you've heard of MCT, which is a medium length. The hydrogen arrangements in the fat molecules make really all the difference in what your body can do with that particular kind of fat. This hydrogen arrangement determines if the fat is called good or bad. If every carbon in the chain is paired with two hydrogens, that is a saturated fat. All the carbons are fully saturated. You know them when you see them because they are more solid at room temperature. Think butter, lard, coconut oil, all the ones that you thought that you should never eat. There are some institutions quietly admitting that these are health neutral. If you have room in your diet for the calories, these don't actually seem to be doing any harm. If saturated fat intake was the only thing driving high cholesterol, then anorexia would not be associated with high cholesterol. But it is. It actually is. You can look it up.
So, monounsaturated fat. How is that different?
Well, first of all, it gets good press. Monosaturated fat is missing just one pair of hydrogens, hence the mono part. The lack of one pair of hydrogens and the double bond between those two carbons at that spot just put a kink in that carbon chain and changed the shape. And so it keeps it liquid at room temperature. That's an obvious difference. It is very liquid. These two oils, both avocado and olive oil, are mostly monounsaturated fat, and they get really, really good press. Yeah, like they're the more popular kids. I mean, like, I don't know what to.
And so our last group right there of cod liver with the omega-3 symbol on there, and we have nuts. What would these guys be an example of?
These are poly-unsaturated fats. So poly-unsaturated fats will be missing a few hydrogens down the chain, depending on which carbon is the first having that double bond, or whether it's in the 3rd, the 6th, or the 9th position determines whether it's an omega-3, omega-6, or omega-9 fatty acid.
Okay.
So fish oils and nuts and seeds, they're going to have these poly-unsaturated, or PUFA. If you ever see that acronym, that's what they're talking about. So also the letters ALA, DHA, and EPA. I remember seeing DHA and EPA for the first time on baby food, and I was like, what is that? Well, they're polyunsaturated fats. And they are considered essential fats because your body can't manufacture them from food. You have to get them from the food.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, so we should really be eating more of these in particular, or?
Well, there's some... I believe that we need a balance of things. And within the balance, you need to know 3 really critical things, especially about the polyunsaturated fats.
So 3 rules for fats.
3 things you need to know when you're picking a fat.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So rule number 1 would be what?
Rule number 1, these polyunsaturated fats, they go rancid really, really easily. Even the monounsaturated fats will go rancid more easily. And what do I mean by that? Well, anywhere along that molecule chain that the hydrogen atoms look missing, an oxygen atom can hook up and be dragged into parts of your body that you don't want oxygen to be there. That's actually the opposite of what the antioxidants that people are telling you. You always need to eat antioxidants like beta carotene and vitamin E and C. This would be doing the opposite of that if it's allowed air and light and just age to degrade.
What about these guys?
They are less prone to oxidation, but I bet if you've ever smelled an old oil, you would recognize the smell of it being rancid.
Okay.
And that is when it's way off. It's way off at that point. Don't eat it. That's the oxidation thing is another reason why a lot of times your oils will come in tinted containers. Yep.
Very nice.
The second thing you need to know is that the unsaturated fats are not created equal.
Okay.
So I believe that source matters. For example, wild-caught fish that's fresh is a source of unsaturated fat. It comes intact with all the vitamins and minerals. It is, by definition, not rancid because it's fresh fish. I think that there's loads of good evidence that it is healthy for you to eat that fish. I don't think it's fair at all to equate that whole food fat source with other omega molecules that are chemically extracted and then chemically cleaned from millions of genetically modified rape seeds. And this would be your canola oil. I just don't think you're going to be getting the benefit from those seed oils that you are from a whole food, even if they are fresh and pristine as they could possibly be.
All right, and so what would you say is the third critical component that people need to know about these fats?
I think that is the omega-3 to 6 ratio.
Okay.
That it should be low. So I came up with a dumb analogy. Maybe it's dumb. So if you had a factory that was putting together cars, and for every car you need 4 tires and 1 chassis.
Okay.
And so that would be a 4-to-1 ratio. Now imagine that this factory has hundreds of tires for every chassis and it's just building up. Okay. And so that is kind of what we're doing with our seed oil rich diet. It is very, very just loaded with omega-6 and it's very poor in omega-3s. Well, some scientists think that a 1-to-1 ratio would be great, like a unicycle factory. Motorcycles, tricycles would be better, but the 4-to-1 is not bad. Most of us are getting like 50-to-1, and this can cause inflammation and just havoc in your body. So canola, cottonseed, corn, soybean oil, they're in practically everything that's fried and processed, and they're so omega-6 heavy. The Western diet is just nothing but spare tires in this analogy.
Oh, great. And so that leads, I imagine, to the spare tires that us as Americans fantastically enjoy.
I believe so.
So what do we do with this information?
It's probably best to eat like you're on a low-fat diet when you're at restaurants because they're probably going to give you seed oils. Everything's cooked in it. It's cheap. It tastes really just smooth and neutral because they've taken all the flavor out of it. They've also stripped all of the nutrition off of those molecules. So it's just better to avoid fats when you're eating out and eating things that are prepackaged and processed. At least I think so.
And then at home, get rid of those seed oils?
Yeah, I would not keep the seed oils. They're not building your health, and they don't seem to even be neutral.
Okay, so what are your go-tos here specifically for those oils, and how would you replace them?
The mono-unsaturated fats are a little more stable, and I do still use those. Those have fewer of the poly-unsaturated.
Yeah, I tend to use this guy for the avocado oil. I use that a lot for cast iron cooking and stuff like that because of the smoke point.
Higher smoke point. It's a little more stable. To me, it doesn't make sense to buy extra virgin cold pressed olive oil and then heat it up. So I tend to use this on applications where I'm not cooking it or using it at very, very low heat. It comes with a lot of nutrients with it. So
like your mayo.
Yes. And so it's very unrefined. It's pretty natural, and it's more towards the whole foods of that spectrum of fats.
What about our lards and butters and stuff?
Traditionally, lards were used for making pie crusts and things like that. And as I said earlier, I think that they're more neutral as long as you can handle the extra calories. As an aside, my husband needs the extra calories. He's on a lower carbohydrate diet, and he's trying desperately just to maintain his weight. So I give him more fats. But there are cooking techniques like air frying that you can use less added fats. These allow you to save money and calories. Just a little natural fat will help with absorbing those vitamins like E and A that need the fat. So just eating the fats inherent in whole foods is probably plenty for most people. Also worth mentioning is that if you're eating pastured animals that have less fat than grain-fed animals, the omega-3 ratio is much better. And that is why it's healthier, not just because it has less total fat. Also, fish is excellent for fixing your omega-3 ratio a little bit if you can eat it. All that being said, I don't think anyone should be on a very low-fat diet unless there's some kind of diseases I don't know about yet. So fat can be good.
And fat is flavor.
Y'all take care.
I mean it.